Okay, we've got five fabulous talks. So I'd like to invite, first of all, Cait McDaniel from Queen Mary University of London and National Museums of Northern Ireland. And she's going to talk on storytelling through science, how collaborative doctoral research enriches natural science collections. Thanks, Cait.
Hello, everybody. As previously stated, my name is Cait McDaniel, and I'm a first-year PhD student with National Museums of Northern Ireland and Queen Mary University of London. And I am currently participating in a doctoral program that's called the Collaborative Doctoral Partnership, also called a CDP, which is run by UKRI AHRC. We're big friends of our acronyms over here. It is set up to introduce between universities and collections and heritage-based institutions. And I am working across Belfast and London. So I'm currently based in London and travel to Belfast about 4 to 5 times a year to work with the collections that my project's based off of. Of course, it combines collections and academic research to really give some weight to things that are held behind closed doors in a way that is opening up opportunities for the future. So why specifically collaborative doctoral research? The main thing is practical career training alongside normal research. So I have the ability to work alongside people like curators of botany, Rhonda, who is here and one of my supervisors, also with archives. So I get to work with manuscripts that are 200 plus years old that I don't normally get to handle and work with if I was doing something normal in a PhD. I have the opportunity also to do a placement anywhere that I want to do that doesn't have to be based on my PhD. So a good deep breath somewhere along the 3rd year that can change pace so that Templeton does not become my entire life all 4 years. It is also a holistic based approach to collections research. So I am technically in the English department at Queen Mary. I am not an English student by training by any means, so this is a complete change of pace for everything. So I get to include more humanities-based research backing up something like a scientific flora. Oh, I'm so sorry. So as I mentioned before, John Templeton and the Emergence of Irish Botany is the title of my project. Who is Templeton? We don't have any photos of him. We don't know what he looked like. However, if you imagine anybody from the late Georgian era, that's pretty much what we could imagine he would be like. He is often called the father of Irish botany. He was based here in Belfast, and his house is actually still around. There are the ruins, and they are the oldest building in Belfast from that time, oldest house that is. He was a botanist. He was also an artist, a collector, and a polymath. There wasn't anything that he passed by in this world that did not fascinate him. You can see these in his journals. Shells, rocks, the weather, a comet of 1806. Everything is documented with the utmost care. All of the illustrations that have been used throughout this presentation are Templeton's that he has done by hand in watercolor throughout all of the volumes. He was a leading figure in the intellectual circles of 19th century Belfast. He helped start up the first library system here, and he was also instrumental in the establishment of the Belfast Academical Institution, which was the first higher education institution in Belfast at the time. And he also helped found and organize the places that we are currently in today. So that is the Belfast Botanic Garden, which some of us will tour later this afternoon, and also the Ulster Museum. He first wrote about this in, I believe, 1814, stating that he would like some place to really give weight to natural history collections so they weren't just stored in a closet somewhere getting eaten by bugs. So overall, the main project aim of this is to reconstruct Templeton's life and networks. We know him right now through his journals and through some of the papers that have been published of his in things like the Belfast Monthly Magazine. We also want to explore his role in the formalization of botany as a science in Ireland. He was very instrumental in the time period where botany was going from a gentleman's hobby to a formalized science. And he referred to Linnaeus as his master. And so I'm curious to see how Linnaeus's practices have furthered his work in his manuscripts and how he constructed them as a whole. And I want to connect his manuscripts, his specimens, and his correspondence and his journals all together to create this well-rounded picture so we can get the historiographic background to him that can help us define why he did what he did. And also reveal the stories hidden within the museum collections. I mean, these manuscripts have been sitting in a cabinet for who knows how many years, and now we're finally being able to crack them open and give them back to the public as they are part of their cultural heritage themselves. So as saying the manuscripts throughout, this is the Hibernian Flora. So this is a collection of 6 manuscripts that are an attempt to systematically categorize all of the plants of Northern Ireland. He was one man he was a singular human being. He was also quite sickly, so he took this on with his whole heart, with just the pure passion of the project. So the first 5 volumes here are held at, in Belfast and the Ulster Museum. Those are going to cover more cryptogamic plants, so mosses, algae, hornworts, liverworts, and then 1 volume of vascular plants, so we can really tell where his interest lied there. And then there is another volume that is held in London, just down the street from me, and that covers both fungi and lichens. And that one has some interesting provenance that I will not stop talking about if asked about it at a later date and time. The overall goal of this is to digitize, transcribe, mark up, and interpret these volumes as a whole. They are crucial to understanding where botany started in Ireland. And given the chance, hopefully I can give all of the weight back to them. And that starts with the very important process of imaging them. So this is one of the pages of one of the volumes that covers cryptogamic material with a specimen inside. So we actually have the oldest specimen in the Belfast Herbarium is one of Templeton's, and it was found inside of a letter from, I believe, 1796. And whenever we're imaging these, I'm working with a conservation first workflow. They are quite old, and unfortunately, we do get what I like to call book crumbs. So with that, I have to be very careful and photograph 1 page at a time. And then at the very end, I will integrate everything back together, almost like you're shuffling cards. So with that, we will have outputs of archival TIFFs that will be stored within the museum system that will be later formed together to create these massive digital volumes that be used by the public, and also accessible JPEGs that I use in the next step, which is transcribing. And before I get into that, this is where the CDP comes into part. This is learning all new skills for me. I came into this as a person who has never worked with Irish botany before, somebody whose undergrad was in the mountains of North Carolina, whose master's was in, I studied plants in Cameroon, and now I'm working with Irish botany and the history of it. I've never digitized anything other than just taking pictures of stuff I thought was cool. I never created any sort of handwriting text recognition models. The best coding I've done before this was in Minecraft, another mention to that. XML markup, that's an insane world that I'm so excited to open the door to and really provide more information on in the next couple slides. So this is my personal magnum opus right now. This is my baby. This is my first version 1 model of transcribing with Transcribus. So Transcribus is a service that uses AI entity recognition to understand handwriting on a page, to then transcribe it for me. Like I said, there are 6 volumes. That equates to about 2,000 pages. I got 4 years to do this, and I actually have to do other research on top of this, so I can't just sit and do a practical project the whole time. So with this comes training the model. I started with just a base. The minimum requirement's 5,000 words. That's what I did, just to try it out and see how it works. That took about 3 weeks to sit down and type everything out for 5,000 words. And of course, you're reading handwriting from 200 and some odd years ago. I love him to death, but sometimes he was a very hurried man, and that comes across greatly. The amount of screenshots in my phones that just have question marks next to his handwriting is plentiful. And you can see here in this image, all of the colorful region boxes around. Those are all denotated by hand. The lines under the text, those blue lines there, those are also all placed by hand during the training process. And that's to hope that whenever the model goes through and reads things, it can do it for me, which one of the benefits of AI is making sure that it can make life a little bit easier while also giving back to the volumes what they really deserve. So these are my early results using Transcribus. So like I said, this is version 1 of my model. What you see in the image here on the right is going to be what the model spits out when I give it an image and tell it, hey, what does this say? There are very few errors. My character error rate, which is 5,000 words, is under 20%, which is fantastic. I'm very lucky that overall he had quite standardized handwriting. The only time it really skips up is whenever the formatting changes. The corrections per page take 1 minute. So previously it would take 5 to 10 minutes per page to transcribe something, and I can get it all done in a singular minute. It is denotating regions for me. So all of that time consuming effort of depth, clicking and dragging and selecting a region and denotating what exactly that is, it's doing it for me. And as I put things through the model for version 1, my output then becomes my input, and I can put it back into my training model, building that up to decrease the character error rate and introduce it to new formats that it will read better. And I'm currently working on version 2 that includes XML markup. That is a very fancy word for coding what is on the page to essentially tag things out. And I'll show you a picture of that in a minute, but you can see an example with Transcribus of how it's attempting to do that now with this little blue underline underneath Lockney. That is a location information. And I have told the program, hey, this is a place. Please tag it for me. Let me know that it's a place every time you see those characters pop up. And that will save me a whole heck of a lot of time in this step. So this is an example of what XML actually looks like. It's a whole heck of a bunch of jargon. It's an absolute nightmare of backslashes and little carrots, as I like to call them. And I do this in a software called Oxygen XML Developer, and it allows me to create a wealth of information behind simply a block of text. So this is the description for something called the Marie-Louise pear that Templeton had identified in volume B, which is the vascular plants. And so I have here his text marked with line breaks, place names, dates, anything, there's a citation like bibliographies. All of this has been included so that I can go through in the future and search things up and have just a marked out line of what it is. I'm able to link text to specimens using this. So a lot of times in his text, he'll say reference figure B or specimen 125. Going through, I can be, okay, so here's the tag for this. Let me create a specific nomenclature for that so that I can go back in and fully encompass it all together. This XML will then be applied to the images that I am taking and included in the metadata. So in the future, hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, you can be on the Ulster Museum webpage and scroll through an image and pass over something like a species name and have it pop up like a hyperlink with, say, the updated name instead of the historical one, creating something that's a more usable form of the flora itself. So this is where plant humanities are at their best. This is providing historical context to something like a flora, which is a very useful research material. However, it's 200 years old. I don't know about you, but botanists are quite busy. We like to change names a lot. So creating something like XML where you can scroll over and change these names while still keeping the integrity of the historical image of, or the historical flora and image of that is very important. It builds strong botanical databases. I'm able to have these locations that will marked out, and we can then eventually map them and kind of say, this is where things were at a time, and now we can go out from that. We also know who he was with on expeditions that he connected all of these specimens with. And so that way I can say, well, Dr. Thomas Taylor was there with him. He might have notes in his journal. What if we link to this journal as well? So we're building something that is so much stronger than what it was in the beginning. It also investigates scientific methods and maps how practice and knowledge has evolved over time. This was very early days. And so while we're marking this out, it kind of sets a foundation for what everybody else after him had to do. And using the history around that, we're able to give some more weight to it. So overall, the benefits of enriching natural history collections is that it does enhance discoverability and improves accessibility. Science in and of itself can sometimes be a limiting factor to get people in a room, especially if you're introducing with botanical names at first. Latin can be kind of a hard thing to get over for a lot of people that aren't familiar with it. So whenever we're able to include things like these illustrations and the common names and the stories behind them, it really introduces people to more of a story than a scientific concept, which is much more friendly to wider public audiences. It supports future research. So this is the first time that the Ulster Museum is doing any sort of digitization that does include XML markup. And something like this is kind of a case study into what the collections can really become, and showing that it is a possible thing to do. So maybe we can link the art with other historical collections here at the Ulster Museum. And there's also educational opportunities behind it. This is a learning process for me, as I'm sure it is for just about everybody else that's working alongside me. And so we can build further into what the collections can become and teach people how to do this. Why does it matter? Making it accessible. I find plants so fascinating, and I want everybody else to feel the same exact way. And we can do that by using these things like these illustrations. I mean, there's nothing better than just walking in and seeing somebody's hand-drawn work from 200 plus years ago. Moving beyond the labels and taxonomy and introducing people to the background of it all. And also shining light to the research that happens behind the scenes. So many of our exhibitions don't have, it's not really shown what goes into them. You just see something on the page. But whenever you're using something like XML and stuff like that, there does need to be a shined light to that, because it's a whole heck of a lot of work that's very fascinating to a very small subset of group of people, but to us is very interesting. And overall, collaborative doctoral research transforms these collections. At the end of this project, I will not be the same person I am right now, and neither will these manuscripts, and I'm excited to see where that goes. Digitization unlocks these archives. It gives people a peek into the rooms that they don't normally get to be into. And it also brings Templeton's story, connecting science, history, and public engagement to the wider audiences. Templeton's a pretty well-known figure here in Belfast. People find him fascinating. Why not use him to get people into the room? And it's also a model for future collections-based research overall. So I hope that people can learn from this and build onto the stories and create things for the future. And thank you, I do appreciate this. And I want to thank my supervisors, QMUL and NMNI, and everything here, and letting me talk about the man who is objectively fascinating and also adorable. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks. I think we'll all agree that was brilliant.
Interesting. Has anyone got any questions, Cait? I'm taking on.
Hi, that was really interesting. Sorry if I missed this, but how are you hosting this data? Is it going to be on like the website for the Ulster Museums for people to be able to access?
Yeah, so the goal is at the end of this project for it to be accessible through Collections Plus, I believe. Don't 100% quote me on that. We're still working out the details. It's a massive amount of data. Just the straight images will take up about 6 terabytes, which I don't know about you. A lot of people get scared by that number. So hopefully in the future that will be accessible on the website to create these digital volumes that you can flip through almost like a book, like you would say on Botanical Heritage Library and Internet Archive, stuff like that.
A slight follow-up.
Yeah.
IIIF framework.
I do not.
It's really useful for TIFF images. It's the image interoperability, International Image Interoperability Framework, I think, but it basically allows you to kind of zoom into images of high quality, and kind of it's really useful for compiling manuscripts. It's used by a lot of archival research, so it might be worth looking into that for when sharing archives on websites.
Yeah, that would be fantastic to look into. Thank you so much.
Can I ask, do you have any plans or do you have ideas for how this could be fed into in-person exhibitions?
Ooh, yes. So there's a lot of things the Ulster Museum has done with more technological based things. I'm sure if you've walked around the galleries, you've seen the touch tables that we've seen. Something I've thought about is maybe creating an ability to click through the history of a species name. That would be something that would be very interesting. Showing how the different plants have kind of shifted in the area over time, because that's a big thing whenever you do have such a totalitarian view of the botanical landscape of an area. So something that like climate and all of that is a very big topic right now. So using something that would be interesting. And also just going deeper into who Templeton was as a person. We know him solely for his science. He had a lot more going on behind the scenes that is absolutely fascinating, and I think would bring a lot of depth to something like a natural sciences collection.
Brilliant. Okay, I think that's it. Time, unfortunately, but thanks so much, Cait. That was brilliant.